Yeah, it's Tuesday. Let's get messy with art world drama. In around 2016, there was an artist named Anish Kapoor who gained exclusive rights to use VANTA black, which is this super black nanoscale pigment, actually a coating that was developed by a British materials company, Surrey Nanosystems, that were developing a material that could absorb a bunch of light for aerospace optics, because catching stray light is what you want to do when you're trying to look out into the void of space. And they gave Anish exclusive rights artistically and only artistically to use this paint, this pigment in his works, because he was famous, and it's speculated maybe he was an investor. But for whatever reason, VANTA black, which is an acronym for vertically aligned nanotube array, and they're vertically aligned carbon tubes, which kind of like describes how the light is captured by this perfectly flat black pigment paint material. They've got a whole bunch of like toilet paper tubes standing up parallel to each other, and then the light comes in and kind of like bounces around and gets caught, and that's why VANTA black can absorb 99% of the light that comes into it, and it's flat black, and that's why it was so sought after and why he was using it in his artwork. Because Kapoor was he does a lot of polished stuff, a lot of reality bending, almost illusionary when you look at it. The bean in Chicago, Cloud Gate, that's one of his works, one of his pieces, that big metallic kidney bean that's called Cloud Gate. But Kapoor got exclusive right to use this pigment in his artwork, and there were a lot of people who didn't like that exclusivity. And this stuff is really hard to make, apparently. It's hard to scale up. They even had trouble scaling it up so that he could use it. But a lot of people saw it as, you don't get to own a color. And there was another artist by the name of Stuart, Semple, who decided he was going to do something about it instead of just complaining. Publicly criticized the idea of having exclusive works to what should be publicly available to all artists. And he started making his own pigments. And first he made the Pinkest pink, also in 2016, that you could buy if you were an artist, as long as you weren't Anish Kapoor, and you had to agree to that when you went to buy it on the website. So he made it for everybody but that guy. Since he excluded everyone from using VANTA black, Semple excluded him from buying his new The Pinkest pink. And in response, Kapoor posted this on his social media, on his Instagram, showing that clearly he got a hold of it or somebody bought it on his behalf. But the next thing that Semple did was to create his own version of VANTA black called the Blackest Black. And for the record, it doesn't work the same way as VANTA black does, like on the molecular level, on the nanotube level. The Blackest Black, the Musau black that this comment came from, that I was using on my skulls, is actually just a kind of paint, I guess. It's not like nanotube technology, but it still does absorb like 99% of the light, and that's why it's so flat black when you use it. He developed increasingly darker pigments. He did like 2.0 and 3.0 with that same condition that if you were purchasing it, you are not Anish Kapoor or buying it on his behalf. His paint eventually became known as Musau black or the Blackest Black, and there's like 3.0 and 4.0, and it came down all with the same restriction that Kapoor cannot use it. You can use it. I can use it. We can't buy VANTA black, but we can buy Musau black, and so that in itself is kind of like an act of defiance. It's performance art in and of itself, so I like to think when I'm using Musau black, I'm participating in that same kind of quiet rebellion. And Semple isn't just anti-gatekeeping and pro-experiment. He also has worked with Amnesty International and was named ambassador for a mental health charity called Mind. His work embraces themes of artists' rights, humanitarian aid, and world peace. And he has spoken publicly about mental health being a human right. But don't sell Kapoor short as a jerk just yet, because he also works for humanitarian causes. He won the Genesis Award, which came with $1 million prize. He donated the entire thing to 5 separate humanitarian charities benefiting refugees. He uses his platforms and his voice as a public figure to advocate for human rights and civil society issues. He's also been vocally critical about political policies in the world, including Brexit. He publicly opposes xenophobia and nationalism in Britain, and also publicly has spoken on the dangers of state getting involved in art in China. And he took legal action against the NRA for using one of his sculptures, the bean, Cloud Gate, in one of their promotional videos. He sued them, and they took his sculpture out of the ad. And also, last year, in December of 2025, a bunch of, they weren't ICE agents, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents took their picture in front of the bean in Chicago after they had raided the little Mexican place just down the road. Little Village is actually what they said instead of cheese. Instead of saying cheese, they said Little Village, which was a direct reference to the Mexican neighborhood that they had just visited recently. Kapoor publicly described that action of them as horrifying and saddening, and said that he was going to pursue legal action. And then I don't think a formal lawsuit was actually filed, but that's his stance. So, not all bad, even though he's the only one with VANTA Black. They're both cool. Follow your favorite artists on other platforms. I'm going to do a whole video on this, but if you like somebody on this platform, man, now's the time to find them elsewhere. Your favorite people. Find your favorite people elsewhere.